Today we're going to do a quick show on why I'm over AI slop.
And why I'm halfway there.
Yeah, I read an article that came out yesterday. It was in the Register. Linus Torvalds, the creator of Linux, of Linux fame. Linux is a kernel that a lot of distributions of operating systems are built on. Yeah. The internet pretty much runs on Linux. And there's a bunch of developers who all independently develop on this, and then everybody uses it. It's open source, just for folks don't know what any of these terms are. So there's a mailing list, and there's been a debate going about how AI generated content within the Linux kernel or the documentation around it is handled. And he put the kibosh on it in a reply. So the Register reported on that. The article title is Linus Torvalds, Stop Making an Issue Out of AI Slop in Kernel Docs. You're Not Changing Anybody's Mind. I'll let folks read that just in case I forget to put it in the description. I think it was an interesting argument, and it's an interesting problem. But the aha moment I had is like, I don't care. I don't care if you use AI. I don't care if you don't use AI. The only time I care if you're using AI is that if you're using AI in a way where you're not being clear that you're using AI. So if you're trying to mislead somebody, or you're trying to claim that I originated this brilliant thing and it came from AI, like, yeah, it's a tool, sure. But because it's a generative tool, I do think you need to disclaim that. And like all the platforms are kind of wising up to that. If you have AI generated content in your videos or whatever, you need to disclaim it. I'm totally fine with that. But I don't think that makes it any less or more valuable, frankly, or less or more impactful. I think of it as a tool like everything else. And I'm just really annoyed at this point with all the people's opinions on whether or not we should be using it. If you can use AI and create an amazing product that everyone says this is amazing, awesome. I don't think whether or not you used AI should have any weight in the acceptance of that, other than if there are people who just don't want to use AI generated stuff. I think you're weird, but that's your right. And it should be disclaimed like everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want to put this to bed. Right? Photoshop went through this too, right? Oh, it's Photoshopped. It's not art. And now people are creating art in Photoshop and all sorts of other image manipulation tools. And it's a tool that an artist can use or a person can use to express something. It doesn't matter how they expressed it, unless they're trying to claim originality or manipulate people, right?
I think it's fair to claim the originality if you had done this collaboration with it to get it to do it a certain way. I'm stretching it a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Like trying to play devil's advocate.
For sure.
But the idea that, the quality of something being judged upon whether it came from AI or not is something that we've mentioned before. I don't remember exactly when, but I've commented, and this is my own personal view too, is the source of the information you should judge the information based on its integrity, not whether it came from one place or the other. Yeah. So that's exactly what the point is here, is just because something came from AI doesn't mean it's necessarily slop. Just because it came from AI doesn't necessarily mean that it's good. You should evaluate the content that you're presented with purely on the merit that you're trying to evaluate it on. And
humans invented slop far before AI was prevalent, right? And this is the whole like Twitter, people poop tweeting is kind of the joke, right? Where, it's like, oh, I'm going to the bathroom. Like, no one cares. That's slop, right? That's human slop. That's Twitter slop, whatever you want to call it. It's now called X. I don't really care. And I think the critical aha moment was one of like, I don't really care how it's generated. And two, the criteria in which I judge something is independent of AI or not.
Correct.
Is this content useful to me in whatever way that I need it to be useful for, is really the judgment factor. Now, if I'm making a determination about a news event or something like that, I care that it's factual. I care that it's not misrepresented. I care that it's not doctored. Like, I don't want to see an AI enhanced photo on the news or a social media post claiming to be news any more than I want to see like a selectively edited clip to make something look better or worse than what actually happened. Right. I want to see the unedited footage, or I want to see the most or the least edited amount possible. And editing in journalism is a whole thing, because there's always discretion. There's always judgment going in, and you don't, it's the same way I edit the podcast. People don't want to listen to us have pauses. They don't want to listen to ums and ahs. And so I try to remove those as much as possible to make it easier to listen to. but it does change the original content, right? We have live streams,
Mm.
people can watch us, and there's nothing nefarious going on. And that level of editing to me is acceptable. And some people want more editing, right? And that's fine. I'm not doing it. But your judgment and how you judge things is what really matters. And I think that's the thing that's really getting missed in this. And I think a lot of people want to know if something has AI enhancement or if AI has been a part of something that is there. You can like that, sure. You can want that. I don't think that we need like a law that says you have to disclaim it. I think there are certain circumstances where transparency is required and you need to know how something was generated. Like financial reports are a great example, right? You have a process that you go through to determine if AI helps in that process, great. But if then there's an error, then you need to be able to go back and say, well, AI contributed to that error or not.
Yeah. If I can offer a bit of a thought experiment, but also just another way of thinking about it, self-plug too, because one of the things I'm working on is trust in AI in medicine.
Yeah.
If you are a practitioner and you receive some advice or some suggestion from some source and you don't know where that source comes from, it could be another physician or it could be an LLM, how does that suggestion affect your final decision? And does the knowledge of the source affect your final decision? So something as high stakes as healthcare decisions, that's a very practical example of how and why we should try and judge the content based off of the criteria you're trying to evaluate for that circumstance and not necessarily whether it came from a human or so I think we're on the same page here is just because something's AI shouldn't really change your opinion of it.
Right.
And it's fine that some people do, but trying to take a step back here and looking at things from more of a objective perspective, I think is really more valuable in this kind of context.
And I think too that it comes down to, I think, people feeling like they're being fooled or manipulated.
Sure. Yeah.
And then I think a lot of people feel threatened by it because they either don't understand how it works and they don't understand how really non-threatening it is. And sure, it makes mistakes. People make mistakes too. And if somebody makes a mistake, they need to own it. If somebody uses AI and AI makes a mistake, they need to own that because they are the author of the tool or of the thing. And I think that's the thing that we're muddying too much of, is that the responsibility of the AI, whatever, needs to be the person who originated it. And now you start getting into like autonomous content, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I don't think we're ready for that. Yes, we can do it. It's technically possible. I don't think we should. I think everything that AI does on the internet needs to have a human behind it, and there needs to be a human accountable. Just like in a company, right? The CEO is ultimately responsible for the company. If Waymos drive over 1 million people, then people at Waymo are held accountable. There are actual people at Waymo. We've talked about the trolley car problem of if the autonomous software makes a decision, who's held liable? Well, the company is. I can sue Waymo if it hits me, right? Now, the courts are going to have a hard time probably with this. And then I'm sure they're going to argue that the algorithm made the determination. Well, yeah, your name's on the car, though. You're responsible. We just need to figure that part out. And I don't see this any differently than somebody putting out or somebody hitting me with their bike or someone hitting me with their fist. Like, they're still responsible for what happened.
Yeah.
It's just like we hold parents responsible for their children until they turn 18. It's the same principle. And I don't understand why we have to try to invent some new because the software just does things we can't predict. That's effectively what's happening. Yeah,
exactly. I was going to say history rhymes or problems rhyme. This is something that we talked about with autonomous vehicles as well. Again, another thought experiment. If you were in a car and someone was at the wheel, but it turned out that person wasn't driving and it was just the actual vehicle itself doing all the driving, would your judgment of how the ride went change? And then after you realize that it was the car, does it change and why? So yes, same concept.
And I would argue at that point, what's the purpose of the ride? Is it to get you across town safely?
Sure.
Then who cares? Is it to, there's all sorts of circumstance there. But again, I think it comes back to the judgment for most people is that AI is bad or AI is good. That's a pretty reductionist thinking, to be honest. And like everything, there's a huge gray area. And again, I think it comes back to, we need transparency. If you're using AI to generate an email, probably should tell people that. But it's also not dissimilar to Spellcheck, right? If Spellcheck is an algorithm, dare I say machine learning, which is effectively part of AI, the sphere of AI technologies. If you use Spellcheck, are you using AI? Should you disclose that? I don't know. I think if you are in an English class and the assignment is to write an English paper not using Spellcheck, which I've had to do in the past, then I should disclaim it if I use Spellcheck, right?
Yeah.
If that isn't a part of the requirement, who cares?
Same with autocorrect.
And if I say something in my typewritten thing that's Spellcheck that defames people, that's my problem. I should be held accountable for that. The spell checker isn't held accountable for that. So that's the same way with the AI. Now, if people use, I know there's been a bunch of X drama. I don't even want to mention it, but like there's been X drama. And again, it's they released a feature that people are using in ways that is either unintended or intended. Again, I don't care. It's not, from what I understand, and I could be wrong on this, but it's not just the AI of X isn't just going on doing stuff. People have to prompt it to do stuff, and then it will follow instructions and do it. So if you're giving the AI instructions that are illegal or, I guess really illegal, everything else can't really care about, but you should be held accountable. Like if I go on a chat program and try to figure out how to, make some sort of a weapon of mass destruction. That's illegal.
Weapon.
I should be held accountable. Just like if I were to go to a library and get a bunch of books and start mixing in my garage, right? Like it's still illegal, and using that as a tool. And yes, it's more accessible, and yes, it's easier. And yes, I do think the AI companies need some responsibility in what these things can and can't do and how they do interact with people. But I also think the users have to have some accountability too. Both parties really need accountability.
Yeah. And I think ultimately a lot of this is just jumping to a specific kind of conclusion. So if it is like AI jumping to the conclusion that's good or bad, if it's some people are using this tool to do something that will jump to the conclusion that, it's the platform or the tool that needs to be pulled back, when it's more about the individual and the intent behind using the tool.
Yeah. And I think if this stuff's discovered, the companies who put it out need to be more transparent and be like, wow, we didn't intend for this to happen. Here's the testing we did to try to prevent it, and we made it better. Just like a security vulnerability, right? Nobody was probably intending the security vulnerability to be there. Oops, we found it. We're going to disclose it. We have a whole system and process to decide how big of a violation it was for security, how important it is, how critical it is. We address it and we patch it. Done. Right? And if they're willfully putting out technology that helps people commit crimes or breaks the law, they need to be held accountable.
Right.
I don't see it I guess I'm still having a hard time understanding why there's so much drama around AI in general, because I just look at it as a software tool, and I'm maybe unique in that. And I understand.
I think that's the thing that we have in common is we're technology.
Yeah, I don't get offended when Spellcheck misspells something. I mean, it makes me mad, right? But I'm just like, the software didn't do what I wanted. I look at it the same way as AI. And yes, AI lets people or helps people do things that they might not normally be able to do. Vibe coding is a great example. Like people might not be able to write code. Now they can write code and they can put it out. Well, who's liable if your AI coded app is full of security vulnerabilities? You are.
Yeah. We could take a page out of our own book here and say, out of curiosity, if anyone out there coming from a non-technical lens has a different way of looking at this and can help explain to myself and Andrew why AI perspectives here are such a big problem, drop it in the comments, let us know.
Yeah. And I think it's a new thing, but I don't really think we need to treat it any differently than we do anything else. And I think the big reason that people might be thinking that it's different is because there's certain people who shall not be named who proclaim that these things are sentient and conscious, and that's nonsense. It's computer programs. Will they be? Maybe. I don't know. I can't predict the future. I'm not going to pretend to predict the future like a lot of people do, some of which
like we tried to do last week.
I know. That was for fun. That was for fun. That was for fun. Yeah. And again, we did the 2026 prediction. So there's the tradition or the new year is to set a goal, or a lot of times is to try to predict what will happen. It's a fun thing. We disclaimed it as such. We didn't report this as fact.
Yeah, we weren't. I think the thing is we're not pushing it as this is. Yeah.
we will get AGI by the end of 2027. That's a fact prediction, and it's misleading to people who don't follow this stuff closely for them to then think that we're far closer to this than we are. And everyone else in the industry who knows what they're talking about says it's nonsense. So the loudest voice in the room is spewing nonsense and lies, and then the entire society is spinning. And I think that's what bothers me the most. To maybe kind of end it on that is that in the age of AI and in the age of social media and AI now, we're allowing ourselves to get spun up because we don't have enough of the context and everything. We're exposed to everything that's going on in real time. I think people just get overloaded. And so the natural human tendency is to reject it or be afraid or scared or whatever. I'm not saying that that's right or wrong, but what I would like for folks to do is be aware of that. Seek facts. Facts are hard, but you can find them, and you can be objective, and it's hard to be objective, and then you form an opinion.
Yeah.
Just like everything else that, we're all taught that as kids, and then we throw it out the window because it's really easy to be mad all the time, right? And that's what social media is great at. It will show you everything that it can to make you mad. Don't take
You can find us at 38.com.
Happy Friday.
It's like the word
Beautiful,
create.
beautiful place then.
The 3
Happy Friday.
instead of the C. As always, we encourage you to listen, watch, do. We'll see you next time. You can support this podcast at patreon.com/38 or at ko-fi.com/38. Thanks for listening.